So 3-4 families in one apartment. Making sure that they don't hear, he explains to me that that is very good for Jews. Because we were in big danger. Stalin made bad things for many people. He didn't say killed millions because I was too young to grasp it. But we were in big danger, but he died. I should remember all my life that miracle happened. He didn't say that miracle happened on Purim. I'm not sure that he knew that that's Purim. I didn't know what Purim is. It did happen on Purim. But he said, remember, miracle happened, Stalin died, and it is good for Jews. But don't say to anybody, do what everybody does. And next day I go to kindergarten, I cry together with all the children about that Stalin died, and I sing songs how grateful we are to the son of all the people, Stalin, for this great childhood which he gave us. And I remember that I should be very happy that Stalin died. That's the day which I remember very well, because that's the day when I started the normal life of loyal Soviet citizen, loyal Soviet Jew, who knows that there is one life that you have officially, when you do everything what you're expected to do, and one real life which is only for a very small family and for very close friends.
And so you grew up in this assimilated environment, not knowing much about Jewish history at all, and then you were drawn to the Jewish activism that was starting up in Moscow at the time, and also the concerns about human rights. How did that happen?
Well, that's really interesting to see what helped me to cross this line between this world of slavery, because to be loyal Soviet citizen means to be slave. You can be very successful scientist, you can be successful in some other fields, but you don't have any freedom to say what you want to say, to read what you want to read, to do things in which you believe. And the life of freedom, when you're doing things, and even in prison you can be free if you live in accordance with your beliefs. So what helped? As I said, we are growing without any identity at all. The main message of parents was, because you're Jew, you must be the best in physics or in mathematics or in chess or in music. You must be number one in your class. That is the only way how we Jews survive. So you don't think that you have maybe to fight for to have more freedom. Because the only value in your life, as your parents are explaining you, is to survive in spite of anti-Semitism, in spite of restrictions. And then when the only value is survival, then you are trying to adjust yourself and to try to run away in some castle of profession or art or science. Then for me and for my generation, the turning point was the 6-Day War. And the 6-Day War was the turning point not because we were so happy about Israel. We were almost indifferent. We were not indifferent, but Israel was not something real for us. But it was, of course, huge humiliation to Soviet Union, and a lot of anger, and a new wave of anti-Israel and anti-Semitic campaign. And suddenly you realize that for everybody around you, but really for everybody, those who hate you and those who love you, you are connected to Israel. And what is happening in Israel, it's as if you are part of it. And even jokes, anti-Semitic jokes, and there was a lot of anti-Semitic jokes. Every day they were produced another anti-Semitic joke. Some people said that Jews are inventing them. But even these, some of them were very funny. So, but even these jokes changed, because then jokes before were about Jews who are parasites, Jews who are cowards, Jews who want to get your money. This time it's Jews who are hooligans, who are beating their neighbors, who are aggressive. So you understand that the image of Jew is formed by what's happening, by the image of Israel, whatever it is. And so we want to understand the connection. And that's when we started, in fact, in the underground, from the books which were brought by American, English, French tourist Jews, we started reading these books about our history. And suddenly you discover that if only you make some small intellectual effort, you can see yourself as part of Jewish history. You can see yourself as part of this history which starts not from Bolshevik Revolution, but from Exodus from Egypt. Just Parashat Shavua was very much time. We didn't know that there is such a thing, Parashat Shavua, but we discovered already that there is such thing as Exodus from Egypt, and it's so easy to feel that you're still in this. And then there is Exodus from the Anuris, which some American tourists brought to us. And you can see that, well, maybe many of you even don't know that there was such a book. And if you read it, okay, so interesting Bobby Mises about War of Independence. But that was a book which shows that just now, nowadays, people almost of our age can continue changing Jewish history. So you discover history. Then you discover that there are Jewish people, they're coming from all over the world, these tourists. They seem like so strange for you, but they say, look, my father is from Odessa, your father is from Odessa, it's only by chance that I'm here, you're here and there. We are all one, we want to help you. So you find out that we are all from one shtetl. And then there is Israel. And Israel, which is ready to do everything to send airplanes to the end of the world and to bring you freedom. That's how you discover your identity. When you discover your identity, you suddenly feel yourself strong enough to fight in the beginning for your rights, then for rights of other Jews, and then for justice for everybody. And that's how I became activist of Soviet Jewry movement and human rights movement in the Soviet Union.
It seems to me that there was another side benefit to your activism. Didn't you meet someone there that you really liked a lot?
That's true. That's true because I think if you were not already free people, we would not find one another. I was on one level, she was on the other level, we were in different worlds, but then because of this interest to Israel, we were coming to synagogue, not to go into synagogue, because synagogue inside was part of Soviet establishment. But opposite the synagogue, it was like our club, where we were coming, where we were getting all the news, where we were helping to one another. And then one day, I organized some demonstration of Jews, and one very tall young Jew came to me and said that he wants to participate in the demonstration. I helped him to head it, and he was immediately arrested for 15 days. Next Saturday, and it was Yom Kippur War, and so in front of synagogue we were thinking what we can do in the days of Yom Kippur War to express our solidarity. And we start collecting signatures. We want to donate our blood to Israeli army, and we demand from Soviet Union to give us this opportunity. And here comes suddenly a young girl, very beautiful one, and she says that she is the brother of that guy. She is the sister of the guy whom I sent to prison. Meaning that she asked what is him. I said, well, he got 15 days in prison. It's nothing. Don't. And then she explained to me that it's her brother, and she's very concerned. And here I understand that I want to make impression on her. And I say, well, you see, we are all fighting. Israel is now fighting. We are here fighting. And there was KGB guy I was already had like permanent guards, okay, who were accompanying me because I was too active from their point of view. And I said, you see what we're doing? We're collecting signatures. Look what I go to that KGB guy and say, will you give the blood to IDF soldiers? He was shocked because, but I reached the aim. I made impression on her, and she became my wife. Now the punchline here is different. Now, when I come to Moscow and go to that place, on that very place where that KGB guy was standing, now there is the headquarters of Jewish Agency in Moscow.
That's wonderful. So you describe in the book what happened. You said that you wanted to make Aliyah, to go to Israel, and that immediately brands you as a refusenik. Many refuseniks lost their jobs right away because you were in a highly prized profession. You kept yours for a couple of more years. But you did have to go before a group of people who were demanding an explanation about why you decided to do this. And you described this scene that I wondered if you could recount for everyone about what happened, because usually when people went before this kind of group, they didn't defend themselves, and you did.
Well, it's very difficult to go to one another episode, but the idea of this new situation is really very interesting. Here is a country where there are 200 million slaves, meaning that the regime killed tens of millions of people in order to control the brains of everybody. People I was part of this from the age of 5. People have to play by rules. And suddenly here is a group of Jews who says, on one thing, we don't really want to live here, we want to leave. What is a huge change, that people should not even dare to say that they want to read the book, which is not permitted. And here the people decide for themselves that they don't want to live here, and they say it publicly. So it was a new situation for regime. And in the beginning they thought simply that they can harass it by organizing immediately public opinion. So one of the demands was that if you want to apply for visa, you have to go practically to every audience that you belong to. You have to go to your work, you have to go to the place where you live, if you are the member of any organization like Komsomol, to go to this organization and to explain that you want to leave, and that's why they have to express their opinion, attitude. What authorities didn't realize that people like me now, we already crossed that line. We are not afraid to say what we really think. And that the influence which it has on people, they're in shock. So they organize a big meeting in the place where I was working. And they start demonstrating their anger, how I can betray our country. But I am now a free person. The moment I cross that line, I say exactly what I think, and they say it publicly, and people are in shock, and people are speechless. They don't know, they didn't get instruction how to react on it. So probably that's what you react to. This group, the fact that they appeared suddenly, a group of tens, hundreds, and then thousands of Jews who openly were ready to say things which they really think and believe and not what they're supposed to, had a shocking influence on all the society around.
And you describe that as a kind of evolution about your own personal freedom.
Yeah, well, that's really very important to understand. Many times I was asked how it is that in prison I was not tempted to accept the compromise with KGB and not to become again loyal Soviet citizen. To say, I had two different lives. One life of the Soviet slave in prestigious Soviet institution. And the other life, the life of free person, and you become free person the moment you start saying things that you really believe in. And it is such a big relief. It's so much better to live saying exactly what you think and doing what you believe than playing this double life, that this relief was so deep and this feeling of inner freedom was so powerful that never again then, for more of those years, I really wanted to go back and to give away my freedom.
So now it's March 4th, 1977, and Izvestia, I think I pronounced that correctly, runs a full-page article about you and some others. And you knew then that this was going to lead to something terrible. And in fact, that's when you were nabbed, just coming out of Slepak's apartment, yes, and sent to prison there. In the book, you talked about how you decided mentally to deal with imprisonment. You said you talked about how you needed to set your mind in a certain place. And you said, once I understood this, I realized that nothing they did could humiliate me. I could only humiliate myself by doing something that I might be ashamed of. How did you come to that realization?
Well, again, I think what really helped me a lot is this feeling of inner freedom, which I got before I was arrested. And what helped me a lot, this feeling of connection with my history and my people and with Israel before I was arrested. And we didn't mention a very important part before going to prison, is that we would not be able to survive in Soviet Union, even one day, activists, if on the very first day it didn't become the struggle of all the Jewish people. And when we were going a demonstration, and successful demonstration, 10 Jews, 5 minutes, standing in the center of Moscow with the slogans, "Let us go to Israel," and then we are all arrested. It was so successful only because if it is organized right, and that was my job to do that, at least one journalist knows about this demonstration, and it is broadcasted that very evening. So next day, hundreds of thousands of Jews all over the world go on their demonstrations, demand from their senators, their congressmen, their members of parliament to act. So, and the resolutions are passed which are connecting the interests of Soviet Union with our fate. So I did feel this power of Jewish people to whom I belong, and that's not something that KGB can put control on. In fact, I use this opportunity to say that, to give you an example, how one person in the world could make the whole difference. Here is sitting just in the first row, Michael Sherborne. Michael Sherborne was the internet of all Soviet Jewry movement, because it is Russian teacher of Russian language in London who decided that he will be calling by telephone. He was calling 3-4 times a week, sometimes every day, for 20 years to us. I had hundreds and hundreds of telephone calls. He was typing them for hours to our statements, and then was typing them and sending to all the Jewish organizations. And KGB was jamming, was cutting the telephones, and we had to supply another number and so on. So practically every Jew in the world could make a huge difference. And you feel this connection between, and so then when KGB is arresting you and saying that now there will be no more press conferences, now nobody will find out what's happening with you, what is written in this newspaper that I am a spy and made high treason, that will be your fate. And so the only way for you to survive is to cooperate with us, to say that we are right and you're wrong. And you understand that you have no power, no influence on what they will do. But on the other hand, you become a free person by being yourself. So you want to stick to your world, to your people, to your struggle. And so you decide that it doesn't matter what they'll do. You will be humiliated, you will be ashamed only if you will betray your own inner freedom. So what is really important is what you're doing. That almost mystic connection which you discovered between your past and your people and your family and the state of Israel, it only depends on you and your feelings. It doesn't matter whether you are 2 miles from here in the apartment of Slipak or you are here in Fort Hall prison. From the point of that unique historic struggle that you are involved in, it doesn't matter what they are doing. The only thing which really matters, what you do. That's what I decided in the first days of my imprisonment. And I have to say it was much easier to live with this.
Wow. So I was very touched by something that you wrote about in here, well, so much, but in particular, the special prayer that you composed for yourself. Here you are in this prison for, you don't know for how long. You married Avital, and then she was forced to make Aliyah the very next day. Your parents are aging. You can't see them or your brother. Your Hebrew, you described, was rudimentary. I'm sure better than mine.
Even today it's not good, but then it was.
But then it was, yeah. And you described this prayer that you composed for yourself in what you said was primitive Hebrew. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about how did that happen?
Well, first of all, prison is a very good place to become a religious person. And as I said, I was absolutely assimilated. Then I became politically Jewish. Then I became historically Jewish. Then I became culturally Jewish. But really, for religion, I really didn't feel that I have a lot of time. And then Avital, who was already in Israel, one day I received with one tourist a small songbook and a note from her. She said that for a few months this songbook was with me, and I have a feeling that the time has come to send it to you. Okay, I opened it. It's all Hebrew that I don't know. All my Hebrew was about demonstrations, protests, prison, treason, and so on. And here it's language which for me is difficult to understand. And then I decided, okay, it's all good, but when we'll have time, free time, we'll deal with this. And now I'm in demonstrations, in press conferences, in the activity, in talking to Michael Sherburne. I'm too busy for these minor things, and I put it aside. A few days after this, I was arrested. And that was one of the things which was confiscated, and I realized, and I started struggling with their return to me. It took 3 years before they returned to me, but that's another story. In the meantime, I have this very strong need for connection. Because the idea of KGB, how they try to break you, they try to show that now you're alone in the world. Between you and all that world is the wall. You had so many journalists, I was like an official spokesman, so many tourists who were your accomplices. You were talking to them all the time. Now you talk to these 17 KGB interrogators, they were 17 people team because it was like interrogation against all our movement. They are the last people in the world who see it. And you understand that the only way that you can survive, you have to be all the time in mental connection with your world, with your people, with so you're trying to think about it all the time. And then, how I can talk to my wife? Through prayer. Well, she already has rapid Shuvah, but I thought I will have time to think about it. Now I don't. The problem is that I never learned any prayer in my life. I don't know how it's built even. Okay, so I have to make it, to talk to her. And to talk to her only through God, because they will not permit me to talk directly. So I have to talk through high authority. And my Hebrew was maybe 1,000 words, but it was not really from the word of the prayers. So I really was choosing every word that is appropriate and every thing that I really wanted to keep with me. And I made this prayer, and each time when they called me for interrogation, I was, instead of talking to them, listening, I first was like repeating twice for myself this prayer. And that's how I started my religious journey. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. And in the prayer, you ask to live with your wife, you ask for your parents and your wife and your whole family to have the strength to endure these hardships. And you asked for God to grant you strength and power, intelligence and good fortune, and patience to leave this jail and to reach the land of Israel, you said, in an honest and worthy way. Did that really sustain you in that sense?
Yeah. First of all, it was not in English, it was in Hebrew.
I know.
So it was, Baderech.
I wasn't going to put you on the spot.
It was Baderech Yashar V'Raui. So 2 reasons for this. First reason, it was simply words that I knew. In fact, the word Raui, I had to look for this word for a long time before I realized that that was the right word. That's first. And second, this prayer I address, because the KGB tries to make you face with the opportunity that you have 2 choices, or death, or to get out by their rules. And by their rules, what means to say that they're right and that you're wrong. And in fact, they were saying to me, isn't the life the highest value? Isn't it the most important thing? You are so young, you're such a talented scientist, suddenly they start giving you compliments. You have such a beautiful wife waiting for you in Israel, at least here they were right. And so you have a great life in the future. You are ready to throw it all away for a few words that we are right, they are wrong. That was the idea. So that's why it was very important for me to put in the prayer that not simply that God will give me opportunity to go to Israel, but Derech Yashar V'Raui is what means on my rules, staying in my world, in my struggle, not on their rules. So that's, I had to connect the word of KGB with my primitive Hebrew. That's how it came out. Okay.
So you spent years in prison, then you went to Vladimir prison, then you went to Kristopol prison, then you went to Perm 35. All in all, over these 12 years, so many different kinds of punishments. And I was very struck by what you said in terms of all the time, again, 403 days in total that you spent in punishment cells. You said that for some prisoners, the worst part of the punishment cell is the hunger. For others, it's the boredom. For me, it was the cold. How did you deal with that?
Well, you can't deal with the cold because it's cold. What can I do? But you can take yourself to other dimensions. And I was lucky in a couple of things. First of all, I love chess. It was my great hobby. In fact, my great dream was, I had to tell you frankly, for the first 10 years of my life, to be the world chess champion. Because your parents said you must be number one. So I had, and then when I understood I cannot be number one in chess, I went to mathematics. I understood I cannot be number one in mathematics, I went to prison. So that's how, so, and then finally I am. But I had this hobby, and also I have to say I loved chess because they permitted me to overcome the problems of my height. You know, because of my height, I was always the shortest in the class, in the kindergarten, everywhere I was the shortest. And here, I built a theory that the taller the person, the quicker I win him in chess. And it worked. So it was like a good compensation. And I was playing simultaneously, I was playing without looking at the board, but it was like a hobby. So simply to demonstrate to people that my short height is not such a bad thing. Here, suddenly in prison, I know why I was doing it. In punishing cells, solitary confinement, when it's so cold and there is dark and there is nothing to read and to write and to talk to him, you're playing chess in your head. And I played thousands and thousands of games. I won all of them. Not only you win, you understand, but you also, then you won by white. Then next game you're playing by black. You're playing the previous game by black and you're improving that game. And then you're improving it again. So the idea of KGB was that while you're on the punishing cell, every day you're degrading intellectually and psychologically. And here you're not degrading, to the contrary. You're becoming more and more powerful, you find more solutions. So first of all, I had very interesting intellectual entertainment in prison. Second, I had great art entertainment. Because again, there was another problem in my life was that from kindergarten, whenever I start singing, Nanny says, and you wait, you'll sing later. People somehow didn't appreciate my talent in singing all my life. And so only in the solitary confinement, Panchas understood that the time that Nanny promised later is coming. So in political prison, it is supposed to be quiet as in grave. You're not supposed to say one loud word. But I have nothing to lose. I have 100 days in punishing cell, another 100 days. It's not solitary confinement. Solitary confinement was 5 years, but punishing cell, it's a very tough thing. So what they can do? So with all the power of my lungs, I'm singing or shouting, I don't know. It's more or less the same when I'm singing. I'm shouting, Kol Halam Kulo Gesher Tzarmod Ve'Karlo Lefechet Klal. These prison guards are crazy. First of all, they don't know what I'm shouting. Maybe I'm calling for revolt. Who knows? And it's not permitted. And second, they don't enjoy my singing, as everybody. So they suffer, and I enjoy. So I had a great time in prison. Great time.
I wonder if we can talk a little bit about how you were able, even in just the slightest way, to relate to the outside world. So one of the things you mentioned in the book is that during the 7.5 years that you were in prison, you received only 7 letters from Avital, from that. It's like one a year, practically, that's all. And yet, you knew that there were many, many people in Russia, in England, in the United States, all over the world, who knew your name, who cared about you, part of this big movement. I'm sure many, many people here were part of the Soviet Jewry movement. Certainly I was. My husband and I visited the Soviet Union once. He went back again to visit refuseniks. So how did you know that? I mean, how did word get to you?
First of all, I know physical, practically, I knew very little. In 9 years, I had 2 personal meetings with my family. You are permitted to have one every half a year, but for so-called bad behavior, they were depriving me of this opportunity. So I had 2 personal meetings when you can really get a lot of information. But it's twice in these 9 years. So sometimes also that somebody is arrested and is sharing maybe a neighboring cell, so you can try to communicate, and he can tell you what was a year ago, because he was already arrested and went through trial. But again, it's, you really don't know. Sometimes you're really lucky, like once I read in official Soviet newspaper, when you're not in punching cell, you can read Pravda, and I read in Pravda that Reagan met a Vital. They didn't think that my prison guards, that they're giving me such a positive information to them. But that's like glimpses of it. At the same time, KGB was trying for the very first day to convince you that you're alone, that they weren't always scared to mention your name or forgot your name. How long you think they will be thinking about you? My luck was that for a few years, I was activist, an official spokesman, so I was very actively involved. Practically every day I was meeting with tourists, with sportsmen, with journalists, with students who were coming and who later were getting information, were taking this information back. I was speaking by phone with Michael and the others. So I knew the level of devotion of all these people. KGB was telling me, who thinks is supporting you? Look, there are only a bunch of students and housewives. And I think they really gave great definition to this movement. Then when I was released, there was thousands times I was thanking these students and housewives, because really it was a movement of students and housewives, but who for 20 years were probably every day were going to the Soviet Union, were bringing information, was going on demonstrations, were demanding from their centers to act. And I was absolutely sure, I didn't have to learn it again. I was absolutely sure that the struggle continues. Of course, I was also absolutely sure that my wife is doing everything possible. I had no idea what she's really doing, but I have to say, when I was released, and people started telling me, and until this day, I hear some new things. But in general, I knew that that's happening. I didn't know anything specifically. I was absolutely sure that Jewish people are fighting. So that was giving a lot of strength.
It's interesting hearing you say this, because I remember being involved in the Soviet Jewry movement in the late 70s, 1980s. And a lot of the impulse was to do just that. The feeling was that during the Holocaust, Jews were turned into numbers and lost all identity and agency, and that we were determined to learn about everyone who had been so brave in the Soviet Union as to apply for an exit visa or to study Hebrew, because we wanted to learn about their personalities. We wanted to keep them human. And it's sort of remarkable that it actually worked in that regard.
Yeah, not only it worked. I think what's really interesting here, on one hand, we Soviet Jews rediscovered our identity, rediscovered that we are part of big people, and that gave us a lot of strength. On the other hand, these housewives who are coming to Soviet Union and are trembling from fear because they are bringing some books for us, and they're afraid that they will be confiscated, they'll be arrested. And they are trembling from fear even more when they are getting from me some letter to Senator Jackson or the statement of Andrei Sakharov for American Congress in support of Soviet Jewry. So with this, and I asked them to bring, and they are scared to death, but they put, and they address it and take it. And I'm asking them, why you're doing all this? And they are saying that it gives us new meaning to our life. We rediscover our identity. We discover that we are family. It reminds us from where we came and that we are one people. So it was a really interesting process. Like, we from both sides, from very different things, we are rediscovering us as a family. And for us, it was very important to see them as the real people. And for them, it was very important to see us, the real people, because that's how we were recognizing ourselves.
Mm-hmm. It's really fascinating. I have to just pause for a moment and give a plug to an amazing book by Gal Beckerman, who's the opinion editor of The Forward. It's called When They Come For Us, We'll Be Gone. And it's the definitive study of the Soviet Jewry movement. It won the Sammy Wurr Prize a couple of years ago. And Natan is figured prominently in the book. And it really gives a sense of what this movement meant, that it also represented the coming of age of Jewish power, political power in America. So let's fast forward a little bit. You've suffered through all this imprisonment, solitary confinement.
I enjoyed it. Though I suffered in Israeli politics and this, but
even the hunger strike. And then it's 1986.
Yeah.
And the world is really, really changing. The Soviet Union is starting to change. All the political power and the pressure from the United States. When did you first get an inkling that you were going to be set free?
First of all, I had no inkling because it was one long struggle, and I made myself not to hope that then one day we will win, but not to build hopes, because then there will be disappointments. But it's interesting, just 2 days ago, when Mikhail Khodorkovsky was released in Berlin and giving press conference at that very place where I was released, he also speaks about how he tried not to give space to hope for immediate release. So I really taught myself in years not to develop any hopes. But suddenly, in the end of 85, in fact it was like Christmas of 85, so I am taken from the punishing cell of the camp in Perm suddenly one day and moved not to the better conditions, but moved to the hospital. And suddenly they start moving. There were 18 different levels of feeding. The lowest is punishing cell, 3 pieces of bread and 3 cups of water, and it's 9B. And the highest is 1A in hospital for the ill. And I never was getting in all my years of this 1A. Suddenly I was in 1 day moved from 9B to 1A, so promoted. And they start feeding me with the thing that I forgot already that they exist. When they brought me eggs, I first time didn't realize what it is because I already forgot this. And meat and butter, I didn't know that you cannot eat it together, so later I learned. So it started a very good life, and they started giving me injections of glucose, so in order to be strong, because I was really lying on the floor very weak. And they give me 2 hours a day of walk in great Siberian snow to see. That's enjoyable. So I have to say, if there is one thing which I'm lacking in Israel, it is the great snow. So suddenly a new life started. It could be a hint, because there was no explanation. Because I already taught myself not to, so I explained myself. They're preparing me for a meeting with some KGB guy from time to time, once a couple of years. Somebody was coming to talk to me, so they want me to. And really I added and added, and then suddenly from 35 kilos weight, I went to 55. Today I'm 65. I was smaller, but then I really, in 5 or 6 weeks of feeding, I became very strong. Then they suddenly take me from this camp, and 4 KGB guys take me into the car and bring me, after 4 hours of drive through the forest, bring me to the airport, and put me into the airplane. It could be also a hint, yeah? But I explain myself. I don't want to build any hopes. I explain so this guy wants to talk to me in KGB headquarters, not there. And there is a huge empty airplane, and it comes to Moscow, and they bring me back to Lefortovo prison. And so I'm waiting for this meeting with him. And then, after like a week that they're keeping me there, they take me, and they change all my clothes. They take away prison clothes and they give me civil clothes, which I didn't have, so they bought it. It was all very big on me. So that's another hint, yeah? But I still convince myself they probably don't want, they probably take me to Andropov. No, not Andropov, Andropov already died, thank God, but they were some other head of KGB, and they don't want me to be with them. And then they take me to the airport, and 4 KGB guys with me go to the airplane. So here it is already possible to deceive myself. And here I realized that I'm leaving, and my psalm for which I was fighting for so many years, not with me, so I was lying in snow insisting that they'll give me psalm. Here I can say I had no doubt already what's happening, but I believe that if my psalm will not be with me, which Avitar sent me, all my strength will be lost. And then we are in the airplane.
So just pause for a moment there. So you lie down in the snow and told them
in front of the, insisting that they brought they didn't want any troubles anymore, but simply they took everything, and now that I realize that they took everything together with my psalm, so
and how did they react to us? You said, I mean, here you are about to be freed, and you said,
well, first of all, they still didn't say to me, but okay, there are limits to which I can deceive myself. Yeah? So
how did they react when you said
they were crazy, but then they didn't want to have problems in the last moment. So they sent somebody and they brought to me. And then we are in the airplane. And I'm saying to them what it is. And they don't say to me what's happening. Maybe they take me back to the Siberia, but then why in civil clothes? Now, by sun, I see that we go to the west. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Soviet Union is huge, but after 3 hours to the west from Moscow, it's already crossing the border. So I say, did you hijack me? Are you terrorists? What it means? And then one of these KGB guys gets up and in solemn voice says that in accordance with the decision of Soviet government, you are unworthy of having Soviet citizenship, and you are deprived from Soviet citizenship, and you are exiled from Soviet Union. Then I cannot continue deceiving. So then I say, I want to make a statement. No, we don't need your statements. No, I have to say that. In front of these KGB guys, why? But I am so used that it doesn't matter what they think. I am talking directly to my people and to history. So I am making a statement. I said, okay, do whatever you want. And I say that, first of all, I'm very grateful that 13 years after I asked to deprive me of Soviet citizenship, I am a deprived citizen. Second, and that's interesting that it was important for me to say, second, I'm using this opportunity to say again that I never was a spy and never betrayed any law. I was only activist fighting for the rights of Jews and human rights. And third, and I hope that the day will come when all the people of Soviet Union will enjoy the same freedom which I got just now. And here I sat. And here I sat and was reading my Tehillim, and then they landed in Berlin, and all the rest is the history.
So from my end, what happened was I was based in London as a foreign correspondent, and I think it was a Tuesday that you were released.
Yeah,
so the previous, Friday, Saturday, we were starting to get all these reports that this may happen.
I didn't get this report.
No, you didn't get this report. And then I was sent to Berlin, and it was very strange because I have to say that even the government here didn't want to actually say what was going to happen. So they collected all the foreign correspondents and the local journalists as well, and they took us to the bridge, and they said, tomorrow something might happen here. So they just wanted us to see it. And so we went, and I think I've told you this story. I suddenly realized that it's very cold on a bridge in Berlin in February, and that night I had a translator with me. I went with my translator, and we bought a pair of very warm boots for me to wear the next day. And until these boots finally gave out just a few years ago, I always call them my Sharansky boots, because that's why I bought them. So then there you are. The classic tale is that they told you no detours, no funny business, no nothing, just follow what we're telling you. You're going to go from one car on the East Berlin side, and then you're supposed to walk straight. Tell us about that.
So first of all, you have this book, and in the book, it is exact story. Somehow the tale changed it a little bit, because what you're referring to, it was when this airplane that I was just speaking about landed. And by the way, when I looked where it landed, it was DDR on the airplanes. DDR understood German Democratic Republic. And I was upset because I already built the plane that now I'll see Vital. I understood that in German Democratic Republic I will not see Vital. But and it's an exciting moment. And they say, okay, we finished with you. You see there was a car, we are in the airport now, in Eastern Berlin. There was a car, there were some Germans, probably Eastern Berlin, definitely KGB, and there was a car. We don't go with you, because we finished, but you go straight to that car. Agreed. If he didn't say me agreed, I probably would do it. But because he said to me agreed, said, all these years I never agreed with you. Why should I agree? If you tell me to go straight, I said to him, I am warning you. I will not go straight, I'll go zigzags. So he said, oh, you're impossible. So no, but why? So I told them, they had then, because they couldn't let me to go, so they had to go out and send two on two sides to make sure that, and I went out and I had no choice, I just now promised them. So I went zigzags like this in that car. So on the bridge where you saw me, I hope you didn't notice it then. There was another story which could finish very embarrassing for me. As I said, they gave me all the clothes in Leforto prison, which was all very big. They bought without thinking what a giant I am, so everything was well. And I said, look, give me the belt. But yet it was still in prison, when there were no belts. So they looked and they found some rope, and I put the rope. So here, American ambassador is taking me, and some representative of the foreign ministry of German, Western Germany. They're taking me, and they go, I have no reason to zigzag with them, they're already my friends. And they say, we see there are journalists here, but we'll go straight to the car, and then we'll go to Frankfurt where your wife is waiting for you. And in fact, they started already on their way to tell me how great was the work of my wife. And my wife, for a few days, already knew from State Department that that's going to happen, so she came there. And then we are going over the bridge, and they say, where is the border? When we will leave? He said, you see this line? That is the border. I said, oh, I said, freedom. And they jumped. And then when I jumped, the road broke. And if you can see it on the picture that I go like this. So whenever people ask, what is your first thought when you went to freedom, was how not to lose my trousers.
Well, I have to say, from my perspective, I just saw you. I didn't see the dragging pants. So then you went on to Frankfurt. The rest of us did as well. I must tell you, it took me longer to get to Israel. I didn't have this special plane taking me. And then you write at the end of the book, and I'm just wondering if you can talk about your entry to Israel. On the one hand, it was so marvelous, amazing, a reunion with Avital, you know, the culmination of this dream. And yet you also were a celebrity, something that you were not used to being, obviously in prison. and frankly, something the Israelis don't always feel so comfortable with either. Tell us about what that was like.
First of all, I still feel very uncomfortable to be a celebrity, and the only way you can remain normal is to ignore it. Very early, we understood with Vital that we didn't have personal life, and we will never have it if we will not ignore all this celebrity status. I know that many people were insulted. Some of them were insulted to this day because many people felt that we have to give them back. But we understood that if we start giving back to everybody, because really it was the struggle of everybody, it was victory of everybody. But if we will not put walls between our private life and the world, we will never have this private life. So I have to say that there is a struggle which continues to this day, but continues very successfully. And that's why we can enjoy having this life. No, the challenge for me personally was, I wonder it will be interesting to check with Mikhail Khodorkovsky if he has this feeling these days too, that for many years you had life of one choice. You are saying no to KGB, and by this you made all your Taryag mitzvot. Even chief rabbi could not demand from me more. You said no to KGB, and you're a good Jew. That's it. Here suddenly there is a life where everything is a choice. Coffee or tea. Eggs are good for cholesterol or bad for cholesterol. And so on and so on. It's everything. And what it is to be a good Jew. How many mitzvot you have to. Are you religious or are you secular? You know, on the 3 days, on this Shabbat, some woman came to me in a very suspicious way. You are pretending that you are religious, huh? You are dressed on Shabbat. I said, after how many mitzvot exactly I cross this line between secular and religious? So you're religious, yeah. So if you're religious, but then why are you supporting the women of the wall if you're religious? So you see, you are now in the world where you have your personal millions and millions of choices, and everybody expects from you to make a different set of choices. So it's a very different world. So in prison, to keep inner freedom was a very simple thing. It's you may have to make tough decisions once, and that's it. Here, to be a free person living in accordance with your views, with tradition, with your beliefs, it's a very challenging thing. So whether I'm already used to this, I don't know.
And what's been the most surprising thing about being in Israel?
Well, Israel, I think, is uniquely powerful place where you are connected in the most powerful way to 1,000 years and to every Jew in the world, and where we are, well, we Jews everywhere where we are in fight with one another. So I think the highest point of this struggle is in Israel, in Knesset, in our newspapers. But that's so you feel yourself very deeply connected with every Jew in the world, and very deeply in struggle with every Jew for the world. I think that's a very powerful nature of Israel. And also, of course, very, very dynamic country. You know, now that internet is, finally there is some media tool which can cope with the speed of the news in Israel. Because in Israel, every minute something is changing.
And you've held so many different kinds of positions. And your family life, too, has grown in many ways. Since you've been free, what do you count as the thing that you have most enjoyed doing?
Well, I would say that I most enjoy to be with my grandchildren, but then my wife will immediately say, so why you are in England now and not at home? So I enjoy every minute. As I said many times, like metaphor, but it's real true. See, it so happened that I went straight from hell to paradise in one day. Really, it's a unique experience. I don't think that many people have this opportunity to be in the lowest place and then immediately to start day from Leforto prison to finish it near the Kotel, near the wall. So it's very, to start alone in prison and finish it with all your people and all your government and with your wife whom you didn't see for 12 years. So it's very powerful. So I was in paradise. When you are in the sky, in the heavens, you can only go down. You cannot go. So it's already 27 years that I go down, and I'm still in paradise. And, so we have a very big depth of our paradise in Israel. So I enjoy every level of it. Okay.
Well, I feel like this conversation could last for many hours, but I have been asked to pause it. I know that you have a special presentation that you would like to make, so please. Okay,
I want to say, as I told, every person can make a difference, and here is one man, Michael Sherburne, who for 20 years was the main channel of information between us refuseniks and the free world. In fact, he is the one who invented this word, refusenik, talking to us, and we were saying atkazik, and he translated it, refusenik. Today, now he is 97 years old, he is here. I want to give him a special plug from Jewish Agency.